We are just joining in live from Blizzard Campus, and my name is Brandy Camel. I'm your community manager for Diablo. To my right, I have Julian Love, our lead effects artist on Diablo.
Hi.
And then to my left, I have Travis Day, senior game designer.
How you guys doing?
And today we are here to answer your questions about the Necromancer. And we gathered a whole bunch of questions from all over the place, from our forums, internationally, from Twitter, from Facebook, all kinds of sources. And before we get started, there were a couple of very frequent questions asked that I just want to get out of the way before we get into the other things that were submitted. We won't be talking today about the launch date or pricing. Those things just aren't ready yet, and once we get to them, you guys will definitely be the first to know. But for now, that's not information we're going to be covering. So instead, we're going to kind of focus more on like gameplay things and what you can expect from the Necromancer. And before we get started, I'd like to just kind of catch up anybody who wasn't at BlizzCon or didn't kind of find out about what to expect from the Necromancer. So can you give me like the elevator pitch version of what folks can expect?
Yeah, so Necromancer, really taking off from where the Diablo 2 Necromancer left us. He's a darkly themed pet and ranged magic class. That's kind of the basics. He's got his magic is themed around things such as the manipulation of blood and bone. They are commanders of the dead, and you can expect to have a lot of pet options. Some of the kind of big twists that we have here is that we want the pets to feel like something that's active, that you have control over. They're not passive pets that sort of run around on their own and do their own thing. The stuff that we've showed at BlizzCon and leading up to today, what we've kind of found is the class is shaping up to be something that's really fun and exciting and feels very fresh and new for Diablo, and we can't wait to finish it and get it into your hands.
For sure. In the meantime, we've got a ton of questions from you guys to answer, so let's just kind of jump right in and start answering them.
Yeah.
Our first one came from the forums. This is from Ghost. How much of the Diablo 2 Necromancer will there be in the new Diablo 3 Necromancer? Slight typo there.
Yeah, so I personally used to play a lot of Necromancer in D2, so I have a lot of fond memories. And I think a lot of the people on the team do. We really used the Diablo 2 Necromancer as sort of a jumping off point, and sort of have tried to adapt a lot of the skills that people might be familiar with and the themes and bring them into D3 in a way that makes sense. So you see a lot of familiar themes from D2 like corpse explosion, curses, golems, skeletons, skeletal archmages, things like that.
Okay, very cool. All right, our next question comes from Alexander. He wants to know about a very specific ability. Is the revive ability going to be returning for the Necromancer?
Absolutely. Necromancer's Revive was one of my favorite skills from Diablo 2. It's a massive undertaking, but it is really cool and it's shaping up really well. So we definitely plan on bringing Revive forward.
Awesome. So I've seen this question kind of asked a lot in different ways. How will you make sure that the Necro is different than the Witch Doctor? Both kind of have curses and minions. What direction will the Necro take? Thanks. Thanks, Prodan Dimitro.
Well, yeah, so I think I talked about a little bit earlier when I said that one way is thematically, right? We've got some different themes on the Necromancer than the Witch Doctor. So blood and bone are magic themes that just haven't appeared in any other class. It's a much darker themed character overall. If you think about the Witch Doctor, there are a lot of darkly themed things, but there's also a whimsical side to the Witch Doctor, and there will not be any whimsical takes on anything in the Necro. It's going to be very serious, very gritty. Then from a gameplay standpoint, we're doing some very different things with the pets in that all of them are controllable to some degree, that you get to tell them either where to attack, what to focus on, where you want them. You get to move them around a little bit. And then, so that just feels very different compared to Witch Doctor pets, which are pretty much fire and forget. You know, you spawn them and then they go off and do their thing and you don't really pay attention to them anymore. In that sense, they're kind of inconsequential to you as a player. And then recently we started to get into this idea of messing around with different resource models. Looking at the corpses, for instance, we have abilities that require corpses in order to function. And that's something that's very different than what the Witch Doctor uses, which is just mana. And then Essence functions in a slightly different way. And then we even have some skills that are requiring or have a blood cost associated with them now. And so all that really adds up to a very, very different play experience.
Here's an interesting question. So this one comes from Loranis. This was also on our forums. How is it going with the work on the female character? So I assume the female version of the Necromancer.
Yeah, well, the truth is we started right away making the female character, a female version. But in order to feel good about what we were showing at BlizzCon, we had to kind of settle on just showing one. But we've been working on it all along, and she's coming along really well. And although we don't have anything to show you today, I think if you just sort of stay tuned over the next few months, that we'll have something to show you.
All right. Let's see. Here's our next question. This was also a forum question. How will all of the corpse-based skills on the Necromancer actually work, since critical hits usually destroy corpses? This is from Karak.
Yeah, that's a really good question. If you weren't at BlizzCon and didn't have a chance to play it, I could see why you would be worried about that. So corpses for D3 and the way Necromancers work are different than how they worked in D2. In D2, when things died, they just left a corpse. D3 has never left corpses. In fact, usually you just knock things right off the screen or disintegrate them. So we had to invent a corpse mechanic. So now whenever anyone in a game with a Necromancer kills a creature, agnostic of the body of the thing, whether it flew off the screen or got disintegrated, there will be a corpse or a pile of goo that you can then use to use your corpse-related skills.
Alrighty then. So our next one, I believe this one also came from the forums from Nick. We've seen some of the bone skills from the Diablo 2 poison and bone skill tree. Will we see any of the poison skills, or will that be an aspect of the Necromancer that's removed to more clearly define them from witch doctors?
So we thought a lot about the poison skills very early on, and the easy answer would be, witch doctors have a poison, we want to push them apart, so no poison on the Necro. But there's really more to it. I think if we felt like there were some really awesome poison fantasies that we would express, we would probably make room for it. But I think the truth is that there really aren't that many cool poison ideas out there, and of the ones that there are, the Witch Doctor took them, right? Like shooting a poison dart, poison frogs, things like that. Those are maybe the most exciting expressions of things you can do with poison. And then adding to all of that, looking back at the original character, the poison tree really wasn't that exciting. If you think about it, if it wasn't for Poison Nova, I don't think anybody really would have built a Poison Necromancer. So I think the lesson there was, well, if we could get that Nova, that point-blank AoE gameplay into the Necromancer, then maybe we could just leave poison as a theme behind. And that's kind of where we're at right now, which is we're not really going to bring poison forward as a thematical driver for skill ideas.
Right. Okay. Let's see. Our next one, this one came from Twitter, at Soul Dojo. He asked, any love for melee mancers? I love the idea of being able to fight alongside my skeleton army like an undead general.
Yeah, I think that's really awesome. We've actually got a lot of skills that have a very up-close and personal theme to them. We definitely want to be able to deliver on like the melee necromancers or close-range fighters. So I think y'all will be excited when you finally get your hands on it.
Yeah, I'm super looking forward to that kind of gameplay. I'm definitely like an up-close and personal.
Yeah, I always play melee classes, so
yeah, so that'll be really exciting.
I'm biased. Lots of barbarians for me.
All right. Our next one comes from Misty Freak. Will we see Iron Maiden inabilities and the Thorns mechanic on this class?
So there's no plans to bring Iron Maiden forward. I know whenever we would talk internally about the Necromancer and the curses and skills he used to have, Iron Maiden came up a lot. I even brought it up a lot. But contextually, that was through the lens of, yeah, I would summon my Blood Golem, and then I'd Iron Maiden everything, and I was invincible, which was awesome. But we don't want to sort of bring that particular style of gameplay back. And then separately, when talking about the curses that we're developing, or like, did we want to bring Iron Maiden or not, that just had a lot to do with like, well, what's the actual gameplay of Iron Maiden? Like, is Thorns fun? Is the gameplay of like casting a curse and then standing around waiting for things to punch you exciting? And we just decided there's cooler things we could do. and the curses are a lot more unique or distinct from each other than they were previously, and we just didn't feel there was a good place for that one.
All right. Our next one. Here's a good question. How many active summons can a Necro have? Thanks, Drat, for the question.
As many as Julian and the tech art team will allow me to have.
Yeah, look, we get into performance issues, like both on, in the engine on your computer but actually more so on the server. Once you get up to, when you think about 4 Necromancers on screen, if they all had 50 summons, there are going to be problems with that. So right now we don't have a defined number as to what we think they'll end up with. And as we mess with the skills, the numbers of them go up and down as we try things out. Like, hey, revive, what's it like with 50? That was fun, and it also got a little boring because there really wasn't room for you to do anything. So we turned it down, and this is sort of a normal thing that we do, is go back and forth between raising and lowering and playing with, like, maybe 7 skeletons, maybe 12 revives, or maybe, sort of play around with it like that until over time we arrive at what will be final numbers. But there isn't a plan, for instance, to pick a number and make them hit it. Yeah, it's more like what's fun, what feels good.
All right. Our next one. What are the weapon types the Necromancer will be able to wield? Thank you for the question, Barbarian BC.
Yeah, so the Necro is going to have similar weapons to, I think, most of our ranged casters. They can use basically everything that isn't class-specific or a bow or crossbow. Also, they're going to have their own class weapons and their own class offhands, and we're developing a suite of scythes for them presently. So they'll have the stuff you're used to, but then with scythes, because they're awesome.
Very cool. Looking forward to that. I have an affinity for scythes. I don't know why. Maybe my avatar has something to do with that.
I have no idea.
So, next question. Will the Necromancer have golems like its predecessor?
Yeah, it sure will. We've actually been working on the golems, trying to figure out which ones we like, what are the themes we want to use. Julian actually showed off one that was a work in progress at BlizzCon with the blood golem, because he's freaking cool, so we're going to bring him forward. And we're actually trying to make up a bunch of new golem types that we think match D3's thematic for the class, as opposed to the D2 ones. So we're definitely not bringing forward all the golems that people are used to, but we hope you're excited with the ones that they do have.
All right. I think I actually have a follow-up question. Yep, I sure do.
Oh.
This one came from one of our fans in Korea. How many types of golems can we use? Is that something we can chat about briefly?
I don't know. Currently,
Currently,
we have 3 worked out,
right,
with room for 1 or 2 more. So between 4 and 5 when it's all done.
All right. So TBD, but that's the general.
Yeah, it will be 4 or 5.
Okay, sounds good. Next question from the forums. Elmo asks, can we expect to see the Necromancer doing damage to itself, or doing damage itself, not to itself? And is most of the damage it deals coming from its damage coming from its pets?
We're really putting a lot of work into trying to make sure we have a lot of different gameplay types captured in the Necromancer. You can certainly build a Necro that is just like, you're all about your pets. You just have pets galore, your pets are killing everything, and you're just like, kill that, and they kill it. We also want to make sure there's just a lot of other gameplay styles. If you just want to use a lot of direct damage spells, you can do that. Like Julian had mentioned earlier, like trying to capture the Nova gameplay and bringing that forward, or the melee range, close range combat character. So if you want your pets to kill all the things, your pets will kill all the things, and if you want to do it yourself, you can do it yourself.
Very cool. So chances are there will be some variety, so.
I mean, I hope so.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
That's the plan.
The plan is that there's much diversity.
All right. Our next question comes from Super Mage. Is there any chance of a two-handed Scythe happening?
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
We will have 2-hand Scythes. Yeah, I mean, I think one of our awesome concept art pieces that's actually the background of the questions, he's got a Scythe, and we sort of took the Scythe and we're like, yeah, Scythes are awesome, let's do a Scythe. And as soon as we did a Scythe, we're like, well, you gotta have a 2-handed Scythe, because that's the iconic, like, Grim Reaper, Death, giant Scythe. Like, clearly that has to exist.
Natural sense of progression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bigger things. It's Diablo.
Yep. All right. This one comes from OG Corey. So just curious, will the Necromancer's minions be temporary, or will they last like the Witch Doctor's dogs and Gargantuan?
Yeah. Well, both. We are going to have a variety of pets for you to choose from that will operate in different ways. Some of them will be permanent, and some of them will be very, temporal or temporary. Maybe only lasting for a short period of time. And through runes, we'll probably have some options to, play around with some of those options. Like maybe take some ones that are short and make them longer, or make them more powerful and shorter, and goof around with it. That idea.
All right. There was a follow-up to this one. Will we be getting skeletal archers and mages?
Yes, absolutely. Skeletal mages and archers. We've actually been toying around with like the composition of your army and what kinds of things it would be cool to have. Mages and archers have come up a lot. It's very likely they will make a showing.
Yeah, we did have mages in the BlizzCon build. They were like,
yeah, we did.
They were part of.
I forgot we did because we did have them. We have sort of redefined their role a bit from what they were in the BlizzCon build. They're a lot cooler now, and they'll be even cooler before you guys see them again.
All right, can't wait to see that.
Me too.
Right. All right, our next question comes from White Noise. Will I be able to build a necromancer around blood abilities, or will it mostly only be viable to rely on minions? We sort of answered this a little bit earlier in terms of minions.
I mean, blood is certainly one of the strong themes. When we first started talking about like what were the cool things that we liked about D2 necromancers and what did we want to bring forward, Blood Golem was one of the first things that came up all the time, and we started talking about that. Like, Blood Golem was awesome, and it was like, man, that's the only blood skill they had. But blood magic, there's like this really strong thematic and fantasy behind that, and like using your own blood as like a means to channel magic. And we've started exploring and trying to flesh that out more, but that is certainly like a strong theme of the new Necromancer for Diablo 3.
All right. Let's see. Here's a frequently asked question as well. I saw this a lot on the forums. Will the Necromancers start with 4 sets like the other classes have now, from Crymoth?
Yes. That is exactly the plan. Not entirely sure what they're going to do yet, but he's going to have 4 of them, and we'll figure it out before then.
Work in progress.
Yeah.
Yep.
Work in progress for sure. Our next one. Does the Necro have things that take his HP away in order to do damage, from Crash Course?
Yeah, that is the plan, in fact. We didn't show anything like that at BlizzCon yet, and we don't have obviously anything to show today, but we started to mess around with that when we got back to the offices, and it's turned into quite a thing. It kind of reinforces an entire play style, so to speak. And open up the avenue for new skill ideas that we really didn't have before. So, expect to see that show up in a big way.
Very cool. I look forward to checking that out and giving it a try. Did I go to the right one?
I don't know.
This is... Okay. I don't want to skip any questions for sure. Here's our next one. Will they have much in the way of burst damage, or is dot-based damage all they will dish out from Doomlock?
Currently, there's nothing that is damage over time. I mean, barring pets, if you call pets damage over time, because they kind of are. But there's no, like, damage over time spells that they cast on things. Currently, everything in their toolkit is just nukes and pets and cool utilities.
Very cool. So maybe that's a little bit outside of what people have been thinking, because I think there's an assumption that there's going to be lots of...
Maybe. I think that assumption, I mean, if I had to guess, because other than... the like 1 or 2 poison skills in D2, I don't have personally a strong association with dot skills. I also think it's kind of just a conscious decision, like in ways to make the Necro and the Witch Doctor more different. The Witch Doctor is just oozing dots, so we didn't really want to like tread into that territory. Plus, we didn't need to. We've just got so much cool real estate that the Necro has at his disposal, like Corpse Explode and Bone Spear, stuff we showed at BlizzCon, stuff we're working on internally. Haven't found a need.
Part of this is probably a result of the decision to not bring poison forward. I think as soon as you say poison, you start immediately going into dot territory. And we kept that out and brought blood in. And with blood and bone being much more physically oriented, it's just not driven us as a team in the direction to want to make dotty things.
All right. Yeah. Let's see our next one. Will you release more updates on the state of the pack's development, like how the female model will look and etc.? Thanks, Truk. I guess this is technically a question for me,
Probably.
Because I coordinate most of these things. So the short answer is yes, we want to release more updates, kind of keep you guys up to date on the Necromancer as it's developing. I don't have a full cadence, like I can't promise the next time we're going to be doing something, But we do have plans to show you where we're going in development bit by bit, and so stay tuned. There will be more stuff for you to see in terms of the Necromancer as we go forward. All right. Next one. Will Decrepify be a part of the Necromancer's arsenal? This came from Bishop.
Totally will. It was, in fact, part of the BlizzCon demo. When we started talking about curses, and Necromancers and started fleshing out like the starting skills, one of the ones we just were like, what is a cool curse that you just feel the second you cast it, it has impact and you get it. And Decrepify is the one we went to. It's really good. It's a massive snare. It also debuffs their damage. It's certainly not for everyone's playstyle, but like people in hardcore or like pushing really difficult greater rifts, it'll be great for. We're working on a lot of runes for skills right now, and Decrepify's got some really cool ones. A lot of utilitarian effects. So yeah, that'll be Decrepify.
All right, sounds great. Next one comes from Supreme. What will be the Necromancer's special form, like Wrath of the Berserker for the Barb or Archon for Wizard, etc.?
Well, we don't have any plans to do anything like that right now. It can be a bit of a trap to say that because all classes have a certain thing, that then this class has to have that thing. And that's just not the way we're approaching it. It's more like, well, what are the cool ideas that we want to have that are maybe long cooldown ideas? And I think if you look at the BlizzCon announcement, if you did catch that, Army of the Dead was a way more exciting version of a long cooldown power spell. Very different, obviously, because it's putting damage in an area versus buffing yourself. But it's more, I think what we're trying to do is look at what the themes are and what makes sense for the class and just follow that stuff naturally rather than looking at how other classes operate and saying, well, we've got to have that thing that fills that slot.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Witch Doctor actually doesn't have a super form either, unless you want to count Chicken.
Chicken is not a super form.
It's not really a super form,
right?
So.
Yeah, he's got a ritual. That's probably his
That's
version
like
of that. It's the closest. Yeah, so you can see
it's not a mandatory requirement of a class that they have this type of skill.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't generally take that approach. Like, we don't want to design to a checklist of things because that would just make all our classes feel the same, right? Like, we don't go, all right, everyone needs to have a super form and a this and a that and a this other. Like, we just go, what's cool? Like, when I think Necromancer, what do I think? I think massive army, and I think cool golems and bone and blood and curses. Corpse skills, blowing up corpses are awesome, and really just haven't found the need for anything like that for this class.
All right. Here we go. Will it be a damage-only class, or will there be decent support options from Dashfeed?
I mean, we don't ever build a class going, this guy just supports other people being cool. Mm-hmm. Like, ideally, everyone is cool. But curses are very potent. I think that a lot of them will open up the opportunity to bring them along in really challenging content or, like, maybe build some kind of cool supporty thing. He's certainly got some passives and some runes and some things that we've been developing that, like, I have to tell people internally, like, I know it's not super great in our solo, easy play tests, but that thing's going to be really good if you're in a group or a co-op situation or, like, a group hardcore environment. That'll be really cool. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, he's certainly going to have things that are labeled support-like, but we're not building him to be a support character. Yeah, I mean, he should do everything.
All right. Our next one comes from Jason Bowen. I believe this one came from Facebook. Will the Necro come out on PS4 and Xbox One at the same time as PC?
Yes. Yeah, our intentions are to simulship. Mm-hmm. That's kind of been our MO for a while, for the last little while, is to come out with simulship as much as possible.
I think that's been the case for over a year now, actually.
Yeah, well, I remember the meeting where we
right, yeah,
we're gonna
do this. This is the thing we're gonna do.
Simul-shipping. So yeah, that's what we do from here on out.
All right. Well, we've kind of sort of answered this one a little bit. Will curses be coming to the Necromancer?
Yes. Lots. There will be curses. Yes, curses.
Curses galore.
Yeah, well, yeah, we covered that one.
You did cover that one. Inadvertently.
Yes.
All right. In the lore, will this be the same Necromancer from the Diablo 2 quests from Warrior Breed?
No. So we're not the lore folks on the team, so we we'd love to be able to give you a lot more depth on exactly what's going on there, and it's just that we're not the people to really dispense that information. But we can say definitively that that they're not
the same person.
No.
It'd be kind of difficult with the two.
Well,
Because you have options,
going
right?
from the 1 to the 2.
From the 1 to the 2, it's like
that's a different kind of necromancer skill than one that we've
Than what
encountered.
we've done.
Although I've got an idea now.
Oh yes, I do. Yes.
All right, our next one. So this question, it was pretty interesting. Will the Necromancer have a comprehensive pet command interface? We know that pets are handled very differently for the Necromancer, so is the interface going to be any different?
No, not at all. So there's you certainly have the ability, and one of the things we wanted to do to differentiate the Witch Doctor and the Necro, and to reinforce this idea of being the commander of the dead, was to give you more direct control over your minions and your pets. We've sort of been expressing that by making a lot of the pet skills very active, passive oriented, where equipping the skill will give you the pets in many cases, and then activating the skill will in some way, shape, or form direct your pet's attention. So in the case of the stuff we showed at BlizzCon, Command Skeleton, if you have it on your bar, skeletons, you have skeletons, that's a thing. And then if you activate the ability for a cost, you can tell your pets, like, go murder that guy. And they will go murder that guy. And then the golems that we've been developing are similar. Like when the skill is on your bar, you have a golem. And then the different golems, depending on which golem you're using, when you activate the ability, they'll go to the location that you commanded them to and do some cool thing. So we're not developing like a new UI. You're not going to be like micromanaging some subset of buttons. You just have these abilities that also will let you control your pets.
Alrighty then. Here's an interesting question. This one came from Loranis on the forums. Will the Necromancer be part of Reaper of Souls, or is it new DLC? So...
Who's answering that one?
Yeah.
I mean, I can.
You
How
should
about
answer
you
that.
do
know
it?
the
You
answer.
do it.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
answer this one. So this is actually covered in the FAQ that we have on the Necromancer that's on the front page of the website right now.
Mm-hmm.
But the Rise of the Necromancer pack is a separate standalone pack. It's not an expansion, but it does stand on its own, and it is purchasable content. As far as we know right now, it will require Reaper of Souls in order to access the Necromancer. And that's kind of all the information that we have at this moment. Or at least that I've been informed of at this moment.
That is a way deeper and more complete answer than what I would have given. So
that's exactly what's in our FAQ.
All
So
Excellent. I'm glad you know that.
yes. I wrote it, so I hope I
Oh,
would.
well, okay.
I hope
This
I
is
would know
rigged.
it.
She put that in there for herself.
I just want to be involved. All right. Next one comes from Shadow Dragon on our forums. Do you anticipate that the Necromancer will be part of the group meta for Greater Rifts?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely hope so. I think there's a lot of room for a lot of different classes. I think the Necro has a lot of really unique mechanics, and I think that curses certainly are a area where when I think of the kind of group dynamics that usually form for the high-end meta grift pushing, there's usually like the guy who's doing the really support-like thing, and Necro's curses are really powerful, and they help the whole group, so hopefully, yeah, I hope so.
I mean, at the same time, it sounds like they've got, because they have this whole commander of the undead thing going, and also lots of just direct damage, they could flip that role too and be one of the main damage dealers in the group too. So.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's hope.
Let's hope, right. So we're hoping that the case is that they can kind of, fluctuate from what role they have.
The goal with Necromancer is that you can build him in him or her in multiple different ways, and they're all viable. So if you want to try being more sporty, you got really good skills for that. If you just want to murder things, you got skills for that. If you want your pets to tie up the mobs, you can have 1 million pets. Not actually 1 million, don't quote me. Server engineers will come find me. But yeah, I mean, they should certainly be a part of the Griff meta.
Our next one. This one came from Scaleless, and this one actually came up a surprising amount of time from multiple regions. Will the Necromancer have its own set dungeons?
Yeah, for sure. We plan on having 4 sets. There should be a set dungeon for each set. Yeah. That's pretty direct. Pretty simple question.
Sounds good. Our next one comes from Culleton. Will there be Lifesteal Skills, and will they work to heal group members? It's kind of a 2-part question, so...
We have, since blood is a very strong theme on the class now, a lot of the blood skills currently are set up to cost health in addition to the essence cost. Part of making that work is also giving the class enough tools to be able to compensate for the fact that he's now spending health sometimes, depending on your build. So he certainly has a lot of recoup healing mechanics built in. Additionally, some of those will also benefit your group, yeah.
All right. I look forward to seeing how that works, especially in
I do
your
too.
play.
Yeah. Hopefully well.
Hopefully well. All right. And it looks like we've been very efficient, so this is actually our last question that we have. So we've gone through 32 questions already. That kind of flew by. I'm surprised.
That did. I thought we were going to...
I thought we were going to take longer.
I tend to ramble, so I just assumed, like...
Yeah. We did have some very straightforward things as well, so maybe we can talk a little bit more philosophy after this.
Sure, yeah.
And,
we can do that, absolutely.
All right. So, the next question that we have, will the Lidless Wall become a Necromancer item? And it's sort of a two-part question, so we'll get back to the other part in a second.
Well, maybe. We haven't decided yet.
Right.
There's still a lot of the itemization. Itemization stuff is typically done a little bit later in the process, and after we've got like all of the skills and runes and everything worked out, that's where you start to get a sense of what the different play styles are that are really emerging, the things that people gravitate to, and then we start taking, like, we know how many items we want to make, but then we start to have to do the work of figuring out what those items are going to do and what they're all going to be. And so there's a potential for it, because we haven't made the decision yet, but it's up in the air.
All right. I'll pop this back up just so that we can remind everybody what the secondary part of the question was. But are there any other armors, weapons, and shields that look like they would just be downright perfect for the Necromancer? Thanks, Sith Lord Yoda, by the way, for the questions.
Yeah, I mean, all the new art that we're making for the Necromancer. The new sets are going to be really cool. I've seen all the concept and a lot of the stuff that the guys are doing. And then we're just making a lot of new armor that just looks like a Necro. So I don't know how much of the existing stuff would be reused or converted into. I don't know if we're going to take that shield and turn it into a Necro item. Maybe. We'll see. Right now we're just really focusing on, fleshing out the entire class, all the skills, passives, runes. And once we've got that in a good place, then we're going to start on, like, all right, now what are the legendaries, what do the sets do, etc. So really until we get to making the items and coming up with the ideas, I don't know. Maybe. It's a cool looking item, but at the same time, he could just use it. I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Well, I don't have any more player submitted questions, but